Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. Get on it today and put all your money down on the Avalanche, baby, because the Avs are going deep into the playoffs. That's my prediction. I'm Nathan Rudolph, joined as always by AJ Haefele, and on today's show, as we have a little bit of downtime before we even know officially who the Avs are playing in round number 2, we are answering some listener questions all over the board today, whether it be pertinent to this Avs playoff run or things on a little bit of a broader scale. We have a little bit of everything. First question.
I am telling you right now. So Rudo picked the questions, right? But I am not giving you the full lineup for the end of 2021.
I did not pick that question.
With,
to be clear,
with the expansion draft in mind, with my full list of trades and signings for the organization.
Yeah, that's.
I refuse to answer that question.
That's about a week's worth of podcasts in the off season.
Yeah, exactly. You think I'm gonna blow that podcast now? No, sir. We will be doing that one in good time. You're just gonna have to wait.
The most pertinent question, and we touched on this a little bit, but we can dive into it a little bit more on this show. Vlad Namestnikov. Still don't really know exactly where his health is at because it's the bubble and that's the way things go. But
let's be honest. If we were there in practice every single day, we still wouldn't know. The only difference is we might see if he's on the ice in a non-contact jersey or not. And that would be... Yeah, that would be something. Like we would have some kind of like, oh, like he's at least close, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, with this day to day, with Bednar leaning on his day to day and what his version of day to day is versus literally the rest of human existence,
could mean literally anything.
Yeah, right. We may not see Vlad Namestnikov ever again at that point.
So that's the problem number one, is we have no idea where he's at in terms to actually coming back into a hockey game. But if he is capable of coming back, I mean, this Avs team just beat the Coyotes 7-1 twice in a row. Do you mess with that lineup? That's how the Coyotes felt.
Yeah, maybe.
Ask again when he's healthy and they've played a bunch of games against other teams.
I'm my actual. I would say no, but I want to see who they play.
Yeah, certainly. Depending on the matchup, there are certain things where he's going to fit in better, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking that like Dallas, I would probably let it go. I would let this lineup go. If it's Dallas, I would be, I'm good. If it's St. Louis, I'm probably more inclined to put him back in the lineup. And if it's Vancouver, I definitely want him in the lineup.
Yeah, I was going to say Vancouver for sure. He's in, I think.
Yeah.
You just pound as much offense as you can get in there against Vancouver, I think. And
yeah, well, and I want the one like feather in his cap that he's got over Tyson Jost for sure is the speed element.
Yep.
He's a much better skater. And if you have a third line, you drop him in there next to Comfer and Donskoy, or Comfer and Nishushkin, as the case probably would be. That's a really, really high-end skating third line. And we saw Colorado struggle a little bit with the way that Vancouver wanted to fly the zone against them the last time. And if they were to be putting that kind of pressure on the defense, I would want as many forwards who can get back quickly as possible.
Wheels for sure. Yeah.
And he's such a smart player that the combination of him being able to read the play and obviously physically just move faster than Tyson Jost would be intriguing. I said it a little bit the other day. I would still think that Donskoy might be on my personal like maybe if you wanted to put Nemesnikov back in the lineup, it might be with him. But I would also like to clarify that no indictment of Donskoy. I don't think he's played poorly. I don't think that the Avs need to be in a rush to get him out of the lineup. I just, and you could have the Nishushkin conversation, because Nemesnikov is a good defensive forward. He's not elite, but he is good, and he represents obviously much better offensive upside than Nuke.
Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind on paper there are 3 or 4 dudes you could sit, and Nemesnikov would be better. But when you're getting into the result the Avs are producing on the ice, it's tough to change anything right now.
Yeah, well, this was the forward core they walked into the season and said, okay, well, we really like these guys. And they only got like a handful of games with them.
Yeah, it was something like, it was less than like 15 games with a full healthy lineup. So, and that without Nemesnikov. So the Avs, it's not like the Avs are uncomfortable without him in the lineup, put it that way.
For sure. It just kind of sucks because it's like he was such a good fit, and he was proving like to be a really nice fit and really nice. The extra offensive punch was nice from that bottom 6. And when you have a guy like Nishushkin, especially, who I think was the only forward to not score a point in that series. I think they took a point away from him because I know he had one at some point, but if I remember correctly, he is officially pointless in this postseason. That's you're going on. Yeah, he and Ian Cole are the only Avs without points.
Yep,
through 8 games. He has to be Mark Stone-esque defensively to justify that.
Right? Yep.
Yeah. So, and I don't know that he's been that good. I think he's been good. But there have been some games, especially towards the end of that series, where it was like, he's just okay.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So now I've worked my way all the way around to saying if they're going to put Nemesnikov into the lineup, it should be for Nishushkin.
So there you go. The final conclusion.
Yeah.
We've picked the player that, well, I guess no matter who we picked, someone was going to be mad about it.
I really don't know how somebody could be really upset about Nishushkin for right now.
He's like, not been that good in the playoffs. I agree with you, but
yeah, he just hasn't been. And like,
we talked about it after Game 5. His best offensive contribution was standing in front of Darcy Kemper.
Yeah. You still re-sign him. Like, this isn't an indictment of what the future of him on the Avs or anything like that. It's just that
maybe you re-sign him for a couple $100K less than you were.
Well, the reality is that you have 6 bona fide NHL defensemen, 2 bona fide NHL goaltenders, and 13 bona fide NHL forwards.
Yep.
Some guys are going to have, they're not going to, some good players are going to have to sit out.
The squeeze is on.
Yeah.
So
it's really more like 9 bona fide NHL defensemen.
Yeah, it's with Byram and Timmins back there and whoever else you want to throw in the mix. We can move on to the next question. This one comes from Cygnus. Do teams really adjust their game plans for a particular opponent? Teams watch film to prepare, obviously, but do they really make large changes in the way they play? I think the Game 5 power play from the Avs is a perfect example of a significant change that gets made throughout a 7-game series where the Avs found a weakness and just pounded it against Arizona.
Hammered away at that thing.
Yep.
Hammered away. I would say that like major structural changes, no. Of course not.
Right. You're always going to stick at least relatively to your team's identity, right?
Like you build a system. Like you are who you are, right? But you're not going out of your way to do anything crazy. I will say that they make meaningful changes. Like it's not like it's a lot more of like what you saw San Jose do to Colorado last year, where if there's something very specific that you're trying to stop, then you might defend a certain way.
Like anything, it's almost pattern recognition as much as anything. If you see, a team does this over and over and over, you do something to prevent that specific thing. And it's not going to change the entire game, but you know something's coming, you try and stop it. And that's where you start getting into a coaching chess match of, okay, they figured out what we're doing, they're trying to stop it. How do we make an adjustment to take advantage of them playing that hand? And it's just minor adjustment against minor adjustment repeatedly.
Yeah. And some of that is in the form of X's and O's, and some of that is in the form of personnel.
Yep.
Like we saw Colorado's lineup change from game 1 to game 5.
Yep.
They went back to the 3-headed monster. Nishushkin was not getting it done in the top 6. That necessitated a change. Burakovsky started on the third line and played his third.
Yeah, whatever. Right.
And played his way up. Yeah. And because he had such a slow start. So some of it is like reading your own lineup. Mm-hmm. Because
play the hot hand, things like
nothing
that.
Nothing Arizona did really changed how Colorado wanted to do it. It was Colorado's own players that were dictating that. But when you're dominating the series in a way that they did, it's a little different.
Yeah, it's a complex thing, and we've talked about this many times in the past, where Bednar is not a huge guy on line matching. He likes to go best on best a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. But you can see some adjustments there as well, particularly when it comes to home and away. Home team gets last change. You can look for more advantages, more not odd man rushes, but imbalanced matchups, I suppose.
Yeah, he hunts those situations very much with things like putting Girard and Makar out there for an offensive zone face-off. Yep. Teams, it's especially true after against a team like Arizona where they have limited talent, and they've got guys on both special teams units. So when they would get done with the PK, some of their best players would have to get off the ice. OEL is off the ice.
Time to hit him with the first line. Yeah.
And so it was like Nathan McKinnon, even if it's not necessarily the first line, Nathan McKinnon is out there. Well, hunting a third pairing that I think would not otherwise be out there.
Yes, you see that especially when the Avs are trailing. Bednar will just throw McKinnon out there with anyone at any time.
Yeah.
He'll try and get his best players out there.
Yeah. Well, when McKinnon's hot.
Yeah.
Like we've seen when McKinnon has been playing really well and his line mates have been struggling, he'll get thrown out there next to Jost and whoever's on that line. He'll get thrown out there, 20 seconds ahead of Belmar for a fourth line shift just to see if you can catch fire, because he's so explosive and he's so game changing that when he's running well, you're like, the upside of having him out there is just too good. You got to at least give it a whirl. So,
yep. In the live chat, a question from Breck10. Yeah. Have you guys seen any change in the coaching staff and how they go about their business in the playoffs? Honestly, I don't think there's that much of a change. Bednar proved pretty handily last season that he knows how to manage his team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how they go about their business in the playoffs. It was in reference to.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure just what's being looked for here. But in terms of their ability to, say, outcoach the other team, I mean, I think we're a couple series into it now.
Bednar has.
I liked his coach. I like the coaching job he did against San Jose last year. Obviously, they did things that were downright awful to both Arizona and Calgary.
Well, I mean, Bednar has won as many playoff series as he's lost now. He's 2-2 in the playoff series. So, after starting out 0-1 in his first appearance, and gave a Nashville team that was significantly better.
Yeah.
It wasn't a free series for them. So
yeah, that was definitely a 1-8 series where you were like, that was friskier than it should have been.
Yep.
That Avs team, especially talent-wise, that Avs team really was outmatched that year.
And this is, I mean, I feel like that's a question. Looking at this coaching staff is hard until they get a couple more years under their belt, because before this year, there were no expectations on this team. This team has yet to underperform since the worst year in team history in 16-17.
Definitely. I would also say in that way, because coaching staffs don't get very many years.
Yep.
In that way, they've elevated what they've done, because I would say that there's a decent chance all these assistant contracts get renewed moving forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Both Pratt and Bennett are back next year. And in subsequent years, I think that's the most likely outcome. Yep. And to be honest with you, like those are like the special teams guys. They're fine. Like even the biggest hater of all of their special teams units. I mean, the PK was like 13th. The power play was like 18th or 19th. Like,
well, and they've been straight money in the playoffs so far. So
yeah, and they, like the power play struggled in the postseason last year, but it was good during the regular season. And blah blah. Anyway, the point is that at their worst, these units are still fine. They've always just been fine. They go through good stretches and bad stretches like everybody's units, but Pratt especially, I think, will stick around because we're seeing the work that he does with the young defensemen.
Yep.
They've really come together
a little bit.
Yeah. And then with Timmins and Byram coming, Pratt was also out there in, he came from Lake Erie and Columbus, where he helped some of those guys. Zach Werenski, notably, helped him out early in his career. So the guy does really good work with young defenders, and so I think that guy will definitely be back. Pratt, Bennett, I would probably keep around as well, but
I mean, look, if their power play keeps looking like it did against Arizona,
yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a 30% power play. Sure.
I mean, it's not about the number production. I'm saying if it looks good, like it did against Arizona, because
it looked good the whole bubble. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, that's the power play I've been asking for a long, long time, is what the Avs power play looked like in this bubble so far. But either way, we can take our first period break there, as it is time to acknowledge Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. If you want to get it down at the DNVR bar every single day with 8 different versions on tap, or of course you can always get it delivered with the Drizzly app or pick up at your local liquor store. And maybe the best place to get it directly from the source, down at the farmhouse in Littleton. You can call 303-803-1380 from noon to 8 p.m. to schedule a pickup and use code DNVR to save $5, whether it be your Avalanche Amber, Agave Wheat, Colorado Core, Strawberry Sky, any number of other ones. If you're looking for a specific one, you can go to their website and use their beer locator to find it. Of course, we also have WGT Golf, our official gaming partner as well, with more than 20 million players around the world. It's the #1 golf app out there. You can play true-to-life courses like Pebble Beach, Bethpage Black, many others as well. Compete in tournaments with DNVR. Head on over to dnvrgolf.com to download and search for DNVR3 to jump on into our clubhouse and get in with not quite 700 members yet, but well over 600 now, I believe. So we're pushing right along, and we'll have DNVR 4 soon enough. Try to push for that 1,000 mark. Have 1,000-man tournaments up in WGT Golf. Second period. I forgot how to count. It's been a Thursday. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.
How'd your car make it?
It made it. It took a while. They had to specifically go. So my back passenger window broke, and the one window that they thought they had that they could replace it with that they were like picking from a junkyard had damage. So they had to go and find another one.
Oh, no.
And thankfully they found one, but it took a hot minute. But
well, I'm glad you got taken care of.
Me too.
I know you were praying for no rain for a few days there.
I made it about a week without rain. So apologies to all the fires in Colorado. It can rain on you now. We're good.
Yeah, he will allow it.
My car window, obviously more important than hundreds of thousands of acres of land. Duh.
Yeah, totally.
Obviously, hope all is well. I know some people that watch are close to the fires. Hope everyone's doing well with all of that stuff. Hope you're safe. But sticking to questions on a more positive note, our girl Steph asks, favorite moments of the playoffs so far, most fun and most mind-blowingly impressive. I'll throw the Cale Makar goal out there because while it was the game was over, it's always fun to watch someone straight style on a hockey team by themselves.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Similarly, didn't help his team go anywhere, but McDavid's hat trick game, the second goal of that was just absolute filth stupid. But
the backhand that up over his shoulder, on short side.
After he knocked the puck down twice in midair on the way through the neutral zone and burning everyone.
That was so nasty.
So, yeah, I don't know. AJ, any specific ones? I guess the Carey Price save was pretty crazy too.
With the stick.
Yeah,
that was something else, man.
Which
I don't know that I've ever seen a save like that. That was
probably wouldn't have gone in the net anyway because Suzuki was right there. But
still, it might have killed the man.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, I think it's hard not to be a homer on this just because their performance as a team against Arizona was so dominant. 14
goals in 2 games.
I mean, back-to-back Brazils is crazy.
Yep.
Somebody had sent us a tweet, Sportsnet put out that the last time a team had scored 7 goals in back-to-back games in the playoffs was games 2 and 3 of the 2012 conference quarterfinals, Philly against Pittsburgh. But if I recall, they also gave up a ton of goals in those games.
When's the last time a team won by 6 twice in a row?
This was just like Beatdown Boulevard. Like it was just
that's a great name. Beatdown Boulevard. I love that.
It's one of the Jake Peralta songs that he sings in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Okay, there you go. I don't watch Nine-Nine. Sorry, fam.
Yeah. It's all good. I have it's really hard not to pick what Colorado did to Arizona as the most impressive thing. If the Islanders finish off Washington, I think what they've done would be pretty impressive because at that point I think they would be 7-2 against Washington and Florida.
Yeah.
And I have been very surprised at how quickly they've been able to pick up and resume what they do with such a tight defensive game, and for them to just drop right into it and get right back to it. I thought it was going to be. I thought these playoffs were going to be a lot looser for another couple of weeks. I thought rounds 2 and 3 we were really going to see teams start to really lock it down, and that happened like halfway through round 1.
Yeah. The Av series kind of the outlier there. By game 3, most of these other series were pretty tight, 1-goal-ish games, nothing easy coming for anyone.
Yeah, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Dallas and Calgary have both kind of just kept on going. Like tons of teams, just lots and lots of goals every game, and none of this like 2-1 stuff. And the Canadiens, so I've always liked the Canadiens more than a lot of other people. I wasn't buying stock in them coming into this, because Carey Price he was just okay, and then now Carey Price is back to being amazing again. And
that's what you said from the start. It's like, not buying that team, but if Carey Price shows up, then who knows?
Right. They've been more miserable. They've been more miserable to play against than I expected, but I'm not really surprised so much by them. They're really, really well coached. So their success doesn't really catch me off guard too much.
For the record, that 2012 series between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Flyers won Game 2 8-5. They won Game 3 8-4, and then Game 4, Pittsburgh won 10-3.
Okay, so I do remember that series correctly.
Yeah. Not quite
absolute insanity.
Yeah, just nonsense on both sides of that puck going on there a little bit.
Yeah.
But either way, moving on. More questions, as we've answered like 3 questions so far.
Yeah.
If you were an NHL caliber player, realistically, where in the lineup would you be? Well, I would never be an NHL caliber player. I'll be honest about that.
Just based on how I played back in high school, I would probably be, at best, a second pairing defender. But certainly, like, Tyson Barrie would have been the perfect, because I modeled everything that I did after Sandis Ozolinsh. I was a hyper aggressive attacking defender, and when we play NHL, you see that, because I just go. I'm out of here. So it's a good thing that we decided to make me a wing, because it was causing us problems.
It turns out defensive D was my calling too.
We need to figure out time to play that this week.
Yeah, we'll get it this weekend. Weekend.
Yeah, at best I would be on a second pairing. I would definitely be on a power play.
If we ignore my NHL skill level and look at my play style as an athlete through my life, my play style screams quadruple A version of Alex Kerfoot, because I was always a pass first type player in every team sport that I played, and at the NHL level, I just wouldn't be able to make passes. The gaps would close too quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this is assuming that we would be any good. Yeah,
right.
This is making a really monstrous leap here. But I've always been hyper aggressive in my play style, which is funny because when I play games and stuff, I play more defensive oriented characters, but I play them really aggressively. So
throw the mix up, Adam. Got it.
I don't know how that works, but I don't know.
All right. Next question from Meeks. Who are the 3 teams remaining who you think pose the biggest issue to the Avs Cup run? How do the Avs beat them, and how do they lose? Well, first of all, it's the playoffs, and anyone can lose to anyone. Especially now that we're past the first round.
Well, and we've seen even in the bubble, injuries are defining series. Backstrom for Washington, Kachuk for Calgary, Scheifele for Winnipeg. I mean, you're talking Scheifele and Laine for Winnipeg. You're talking major injuries have taken place that have helped shape these series.
Yep.
So I think as long as not assuming injuries play a role into this, I would say Vegas, Tampa Bay. A third would probably be St. Louis.
Really? I'd even say Boston maybe is the third.
Well, and I just think that this is the year that Tampa gets through Boston.
I agree with you. This is all right. So here's how the Eastern Conference works. I buy into a team year after year after year, and then when I give up on them, they finally win the cup. That's just how it goes.
I was all in on Boston last year, and I'm all in on Tampa Bay this year out of the East.
Fair enough. I both of those teams scare me more than anyone in the West, but Vegas for sure.
Vegas. I think there's a low-key chance Colorado would smash Vegas.
I do think there's that possibility, but I also think if there was a team that could blow Colorado out, it could be Vegas too. I think that series could go either way.
I think that's fair.
So, how you beat them? Stay healthy, play good hockey. I would say of the teams that they're getting ready to face in round 2, I would say the only one that has that dynamic element that could be scary if they really catch fire is Vancouver. I mean, Markstrom would just have to play unconscious, basically, right, for that to happen.
I mean, he would have to be outstanding, and their power play would have to continue humming along like it has, being just ridiculous. Those two things would have to work together.
Yep.
And they're both two things that could definitely happen. So I won't be upset if St. Louis does the thing against Vancouver. But I'm not really sitting around worrying too much.
Yeah.
About any of the teams out west. Colorado's largely going to succeed or fail, especially in round 2, whoever they play, based on themselves.
Yep.
I think they're the more talented group.
100. They hold their own destiny for sure. I agree with that. Next question, last question of period 2 here from Avalangelist. Is that the most dominating series the Avs have ever had? The Coyote series that they just finished? If not, which one?
I mean, there were so many series. Like, look, I'm not the historian for this. This would be one where AD would be better suited because he lived through all those. He would remember all those better than anybody. All the series back in the Sakic Forsberg days, I don't remember.
I mean,
I don't remember enough of them to really be able to tell you
the
confidently.
Series that jumped out to my mind right away was the 96 Cup Finals where the Avs swept Florida. Yes, I understand the games were close, and it is what it is there, but you have to understand the era as well. They're in the dead puck era where teams just don't score as many goals, and they still had a game where they dropped 8 on Florida.
Yeah, well, between that and really the first three games of the series, like they weren't.
Yeah,
that we watched those games, man. They were not that close.
Right, the score
they
didn't
were
reflect.
Okay, but it was not a Cup Finals until the 4th game. It's not what you would want out of a Cup Finals, where
similar stylistically, right? Where they're like, okay, Van Beesbrook, please save us.
Yeah. So I would. That's a decent one.
I'm just looking through. The Avs had a sweep of Vancouver in the 01 conference quarters. And that's it. Those are the only 2 series sweeps in Avalanche history. So,
yeah, I don't. Maybe I would say probably because they dominated that series so badly.
Top 3. We'll put it that way, to say the least.
I mean, even when you absolutely like thoroughly dominate the game that you even lose in the series, it's like, come on.
Yeah. Hard to argue with that. So,
yeah.
Either way, it's up there. Definitely a very, very dominant series. Also, the only time the Avs have played an 11 seed in the playoffs. So, give and take a little bit there. But we can take our second period break with that. And, of course, got to talk about our favorite Strava Craft coffee, the CBD coffee. That has really changed lives, which you can now get cold brew at the DNVR bar if you want to give it a try. Once you order it, once you like it, you can go to StravaCraftCoffee.com and order with code DNVR to get 20% off and sign up for their subscription service where you can get 20% off every single time you buy. So jump on Strava Craft Coffee while you can, while it's still cheap, and give it a try today. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. Our next question comes from Sloppy Doc. I know focus is on here and now in the playoffs, but how are we feeling about the prospect bottom 6 pool? Avs let Morrison, Shirev, Kamenev, and likely Greer go. I don't know that they'll let Greer go for sure, but will they continue to just find depth in free agency? In the immediate, they have replacements ready to go. They have Martin Kaut. They have Shane Bowers. It's not a big issue.
Logan O'Connor.
Logan O'Connor is the 13th forward, very likely next year. They have replacements there. This coming season, there's likely to be a bit of a dearth of prospects in the AHL, but we talked about it'll get through next year, and all of a sudden, the Avs are going to be flooded with prospects, particularly forward prospects that are probably fighting for a third line-esque role.
Yeah, when you talk about some of the prospects that are coming, you look at Ranta and Bocage as the only two that you would say, hey, if these guys absolutely
Really
max out, these and obviously New Hook, like these are the guys who could be top 6 guys.
New Hook's kind of in a league of his own on the forward side.
Definitely. Bocage, I think has. If you're looking for a career for Alex Bocage to mimic, I would say it's probably Jamie McGinn.
Yeah, middle 6-ish goal scorer.
Yeah, a guy that can just shoot for you and needs to learn how to play the game beyond that.
Yep,
needs to develop a game outside of that. Ranta and Mutala and Kovalenko, all those guys are going to have to learn how to be bottom 6 guys.
Yep.
And that's one thing where I really love how Kovalenko's KHL career has gone, is because he plays that grinder role already in Russia.
He's not afraid to do bottom 6 stuff. Yep.
Yeah, and he was doing a lot of the dirty work for when he was still age eligible in WJCs and things. So he's already been that guy. He's going to be that guy whenever he wants to come to the NHL. He will be a ready-made drag and drop bottom 6 player for them.
Yep. So I would say honestly, the outlook for the Avs prospect forward core is positive. Yeah, very positive right now.
Especially because they're going to have to draft a forward in the first round, as we've seen.
As much as we desperately want to take the Avs, doesn't look like they're going to be able to do it. So, yeah, I think they're pretty darn comfortable, even if next year is a little bit of a lull in the minor pro leagues. Yeah,
the Eagles will probably be a lot more. I mean, they will 100% be vet heavy.
Yep.
Next year, there will not be very many must-see prospects there. So,
and I mean, we'll see. Maybe the end result of that is Shane Bowers gets to go be the 1C star down there. Who knows? But
yeah, the question will be, how committed is Colorado to? How committed are they to letting those guys take those jobs? Because if they let Matt Nieto walk and then they go out and they sign, I don't know, a Matt Nieto from a different team,
dude for around $2 million. Yeah,
right. The Vlad Domestikov leaves in free agency and they sign a different Vlad Domestikov type that they like.
Yep.
That they want to bring in, like that. You're losing spots there for Kaut. You're losing, Bowers.
Yep.
Even O'Connor gets pushed out and all these things. So it's they need to kind of either leave those spots open for the kids to take those jobs, and they need to commit to it, or those guys are going to end up back in the Eagles waiting for an injury, and then they get called up, and it's like, okay, these guys clearly belong. Now what do you do? And there's something to be said for depth, but at some point they kind of need to just give the job over when you feel like a guy has earned it. And like we've talked about it, like Kaut should have a job.
Yep. Pretty
given the way that they've acted with this contract and how they've been so far with him over in Europe.
Look, he's earned it, and they've set himself to have a role next year. It would feel like a left-hand turn if he didn't have a job next season. What changed, basically? So that's where I'm at with it. We've talked about this a lot this season, where eventually you have to lean into the prospects because the cap is coming. They have to pay people eventually. And if you're not going to lean into it next season, how can it? I guess the counterpoint is if you're going to go out and sign a Nieto type, there's no way you're getting that guy on a 1-year deal, right? That dude's going to want security. He's going to want a couple years.
Calvert took 3 years. Como took 3 years. Belmar took 2 years.
Yep.
Those guys, unless they are reclamation projects a la Nishushkin, they're not getting
a 1-year deal. And the Avs just straight up should not be chasing reclamation projects anymore. So,
yeah, that should have ended with Nishushkin.
Yep.
Because they don't the same all the reasons we didn't like the signing last year, like with it just being they've got so many guys that they can give that job to. Same things apply.
Yep, for sure. Next question comes from Annalisa. We have a couple ones going a bit wider here. Again, might not be the right historians for these questions, but we'll do our best. Is the Kadri for Barry Kerfoot trade one of the top trades the Avs have ever completed? So obviously number one, I mean, if you want to limit it to Avs history only, number one is the Patrick Waugh trade. If you're not limiting it, obviously the Lindros trade is essentially what won the Avs 2 Stanley Cups.
I mean, yeah, let's limit it to Avs history. So obviously Patrick Waugh and Matt Duchene deals are high end.
Mm-hmm.
The Duchene deal is still a little bit more potential than reality.
But just based off of what they have so far has been a good trade.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly a good trade.
Yep.
So if Sam Girard is the only player they get out of that deal, it's still a good trade.
Yep.
Let's see. The Steve Konowalchuk trade was a good one.
Chris Stewart trade kind of ended up being good in certain ways.
Yeah, the EJ deal. I think the EJ deal was weird because when we're trying to talk about like a good trade, did it work out for the Avs or did they win the deal? Because the Ryan O'Reilly trade worked out just fine for Colorado. Yep. It wasn't the smashing success that we were hoping it would be. But JT Compher and Nikita Zadorov are good Avs players on their best team in a long time. Is Ryan O'Reilly still the best player from that deal? Yeah. But that was a guy that they were going to either lose for free or lose the way that they did. They got something, and like look at the deals he's been involved in. Would you rather have the deal that Colorado made or the deal that Buffalo made?
Yeah, that Buffalo one is rough, man.
So what Colorado did fine in the O'Reilly deal. I think that's a good trade. I still think that's a fine trade for them. They at least break even in that.
Rob Blake deal, I suppose, probably up there as well.
Which one?
Rob Blake.
Yeah, you have to feel fine about the Rob Blake deal. It's like you have to feel fine about the Ray Bourque deal.
Yep.
Because none of the guys from either one of those deals, the best player that they gave up in either of those deals was Adam Dedmarsh, and his career unfortunately got cut short due to injury. So it wasn't like something major went the other way in any of those deals. The Avs really didn't hurt in those deals. That's what the Theo Fleury trade would have been great. Yep. Had they given up Martin Skula instead of Robin Regehr.
Yep. That's the way it goes though. And the reality of this, and we can combine this with our next question a little bit as we're drifting towards this anyway, where Steve asks, is this the great Avs team or the greatest Avs team? Anytime you make a trade for Ray Bourque, for Rob Blake, for Patrick Waugh, those guys went on to win cups with this team.
Yeah.
The Nazem Kadri trade, again at the end of this contract, if the Avs have a cup, it's going to be up there.
Yeah, if they have 2 cups, they have 3 cups, whatever. Yep. Whatever it ends up being, like we'll judge it when it's over.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has to be like a good trade just because the Avs were runaway winners. As long as it helps the Avs do something, Mm-hmm. And that's where the EJ trade is kind of interesting because neither team ended up getting what they I would say both teams got what they wanted. In that Colorado got their number 1 defenseman, they got a first round pick. The Blues ended up with the power forward and Chris Stewart they wanted, and they definitely got the puck moving defender that they really wanted for that era in Kevin Shattenkirk, but they didn't do anything with it. Neither team won anything with any of those guys. And so it was kind of like both teams would probably would remake the trade. The only major change that would happen is the Avs would take somebody else at 11 with that pick.
Yeah. Well, and at the time of the trade, a lot of people considered Chris Stewart to be the best piece.
Yeah.
Of the whole, a guy on pace to score 30 goals and look to be a breakout offensive star, and
legitimate power forward.
Ended up being, I mean, yeah, the first round pick was the worst part, but ended up, I guess Jay McClement was probably a less impactful NHL player from that point on.
Well, and Tyrati didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's true. But Stewart, had one decent season in St. Louis and then fell off a cliff, and then Shattenkirk and EJ kind of found their strides. So
yeah, and they both played the roles that the teams wanted very nicely. It was just that team accomplishment. Neither one of them did much of anything.
Yep, it's very true. But
definitely one of the better Avs trades though, Kadri, because it's. I mean, the big downside was you're losing. For a team that was trying to improve its secondary scoring. They lost a 59-point defenseman. They lost a 40-point forward when they were trying to get more of those forwards. And so there was some sticker shock there. But knowing that they had Cale Makar to replace Barry and that Kadri was replacing really Soderberg, not Kerfoot.
Yeah.
It was just too good of a fit. It's why you and I were over the moon about it, even though the sticker shock was probably... I remember being a little disappointed when I first saw it because it was like both of them. And then Callie Rosen in return. And it was like, how good is Callie Rosen and all that. But just with Kadri, it's fine.
Yep, I agree.
Can't complain about from a Colorado perspective, you just can't complain about that deal. They got exactly what they wanted.
As far as the team as a whole, impossible to rate it any higher than 3 until they win a cup, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and we're talking the 98 and 99 teams lost in Game 7 of the conference finals.
And you're talking about teams with 4 or 5 Hall of Famer locks on them.
Yeah, the 2002 Avs were 1 win away from the Cup Finals.
Yep.
I think that was the year. I think that was the Western Conference Finals against Detroit. I'm like I said, not the right historians for this, but there were some really, really, really good Avs teams, and this team still has an awful lot to prove in order to join that pantheon.
Are they capable?
Right now, they're a team in the second round waiting for an opponent. Yep. So,
are they capable? I think they're capable, but they have to do it at the end of the day. If this team were to drop out of the second round and everyone were to retire today, no one's making the Hall of Fame. No one has cemented themselves in an NHL legend. The closest would be McKinnon.
Yeah.
And he still has his whole prime to go. So,
yeah.
I believe this team can get better over the next couple of years. We'll put it that way.
If you were comparing this to old Avs teams, this is closer to the 95-96 team.
100% agree with that. If you're talking about not results and on paper, I think there's a good argument this team is better than the 95-96 team, particularly the defense.
Yeah. But not having Patrick Waugh is a really
kind of a massive hole.
Really represents the one thing that we're all still kind of watching. We didn't have to talk about the goaltending in the first round because they didn't have to do much. But
when you have play multiple games where your goalie has to make less than 20 saves,
yeah,
they got the job done, but they didn't have to try so hard.
Yeah.
Last question, and this is hardly even a question. AJ, final best offer. Colorado Avalanche to Taylor Hall.
Oh, God. You want to do this at the end when we don't have time to let this breathe and actually have a conversation about it?
Oh, we can have a conversation about it if you want.
Okay, so first of all of the people dismissing it out of hand, I think you guys are crazy.
Let the recency bias die. It's a 5-game sample size.
against a super overmatched team.
Yep.
Like, who does Taylor Hall have playing center for him? Like, I mean, come on, man.
And it's
like,
it's not even Nick Schmaltz.
Like you drop that guy next to either one, Kadri or McKinnon, and it's like the lineup gets supercharged.
Yep.
It just does. And you're gonna be in a cap crunch no matter what in a couple of years. You might as well be the absolute best team you can be while being in that crunch. I will take the chance on a multi-year deal into his 30s.
Yep.
I'm historically I'm pretty careful about wanting to pick spots, but that's the kind of guy that I would do it for. I would have done it for Panarin last year, do it for that guy. I would give him a 5-year deal at $8 million per, and that would be my hard line. I wouldn't give him 6, and I won't give him 8,001.
I love the 5 years. I think 5 years is perfect.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably go a little bit more, 8.5, 9, but we're splitting hairs there.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
So here's the thing. The big drawback with Taylor Hall is he injury prone? Are his injuries going to catch up with him in his 30s? And we've seen team after team after team, not named the Avalanche, abuse the LTIR system with guys like this, and essentially just get out of that cap hit in a lot of ways by using Robida Island or whatever you want to call it. And you can't load up too much. You can't go full Toronto like they did this year with it, where they were like having to juggle 17 plates at once to stay under the cap. But if you're going to take a shot on one guy, it would be Taylor Hall for me to take that risk with.
Yeah, and like this is the thing, is that I'm not making this big foray, this big money play into free agency no matter what. It's Taylor Hall. Like I'm making the play for Taylor Hall because he's an elite play driver who has never played any kind of sustained time again with a real center, with a high end center. And
if you don't get Taylor Hall, there's a very realistic option that the best thing the Avs can do is essentially nothing in free agency.
Definitely, I'm with you. I think that's exactly what my free agency plan would be. There would be other things I would look into.
I mean, you got to do your due diligence for sure.
I would look into 1 or 2 year deals on guys like Mikael Granlund. But that's it. Like that's you're talking about. There's a very real downside to those conversations if you do that. Whereas the downside with Taylor Hall, I don't see any like a bottoming out. Even in Arizona, he was pushing a point per game with very little help around him.
The reality of the Avs, when they're making free agency moves based on where they are now, the question they should be asking is, does this move win us a Stanley Cup? And obviously you can never answer that question 100%.
You can't answer it definitively, but you can sure say, holy smokes.
Yeah, exactly. There's a big difference in how strongly you feel about that when you're getting Taylor Hall as opposed to random middling free agent man.
Yeah. Especially because it's not like they don't have the Toronto problem, which is always cited as the reason not to do it, because they aren't a horrifically unbalanced roster.
Yep.
They have a good defense, and then they have, for the guys that are going to either age or price themselves out, they have good replacements already ready to go on defense. They're there. They're in that spot. That's the only reason why we're even having this conversation. He would make them better. He would certainly make them
certainly up until the beginning contract should be more than manageable.
Yep. You should be like, you can do it. You can do it.
Yep.
It's just You would have to go short term on other dudes like Burakovsky and Graves, which I'm okay with doing anyway, and I think probably is the likeliest answer. The likeliest outcome is that they end up doing short term on those guys anyway.
It's still
because they have to. They have to dance around the Makar contract until they get an answer. And that's the other thing about Taylor Hall is that I don't do a single thing until I get a definitive answer from Cale Makar, yes or no, you're going to sign an extension this summer, and Gabe Landeskog. If neither of those guys sign, I probably don't even mess with Taylor Hall at all because I would be too worried about it.
You have to at least know where you stand with your own players for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Those are the two most important contracts for them this offseason, and if they don't have answers to either of them, it's really hard for them to make any kind of a big money commitment. They could make a $3 or $4 million commitment somewhere to somebody, but they couldn't make an $8 million multi-year commitment to a guy if they have no idea what Landeskog and Makar are going to be on the books for. So I would definitely want a Landeskog extension in place before free agency starts, and then, or at least like a solid idea of what that deal is.
Yeah.
Which we wouldn't be privy to, but it would be nice if they had an idea.
When it comes to Hall, I think the Landeskog deal is more important, right? Because at the end of the day, the Makar deal is basically back the dump truck up if he wants it.
Yeah, and I think this is just my guess here, is that it's going to land in between the Mikko deal and the Shabbat deal. Shabbat will be the starting point because it's the highest defenseman deal.
Yep.
But Rantanen, it would be hard to pay more than Rantanen when Rantanen had back-to-back 80-point seasons on his freaking ELC.
Yep. Agreed.
So,
and for the season that Rantanen had, and even these playoffs where a lot of people talking about his struggles, he's still a point per game player, even when everyone's like he's not playing that well. So
yeah. He's not worth $9 million, but he's still somehow a point per game guy. There's something to be said for a guy that, even when he doesn't look like he's playing well, continues to find a way to produce.
Yep.
You just can't, in my opinion, you just can't overpay for production like that.
Agreed.
Like, you can whine about process and, this guy doesn't actually drive play.
There is no projection here. These dudes are in the NHL. This is as good as it gets. If you're producing here, you're producing here. it's the point is to score points.
Mm-hmm. It's to score goals and have guys who make that happen. And with Mikko Rantanen, it happens.
Yep.
It's not always pretty, but the guy just produces, and that's so insanely valuable in a league full of like Brock McGinn types, where it's like that guy is like this close to being really, really, really good. So,
all right. Well, I suppose it's about time to wrap up the show as we hit the hour mark just about here. So if you're on a hot date and you want to produce the goods in the bedroom, Manscaped has you covered. You know what? Even if you don't do the best manscaping job, the effort will get you a point per game. We'll put it that way. How about that? The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, clean it up, make it look as good as you can. They'll get you covered in the bedroom. Of course, you can always buy all of their other products as well. You're going on the hot date in the first place. They got your breath mints. They got your cologne. They will make sure you smell nice. They'll make sure you look nice. They'll make sure you are covered top to bottom. You can get shave mats if you want to shave your beard as well. You can get all sorts of products to keep you clean, fresh, all over your body. So head on over to manscaped.com and use code DNVR20 to get 20% off and free shipping. That's it for us today. Thank you all for all of your questions. Always much appreciated. We will be back tomorrow with Free Skate Friday, messing around, having some fun games, maybe looking around at the playoffs so far. But until then, hope y'all have a wonderful Thursday, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.